Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Andrew Lee, and I'm part of the Understood Content team. The topic of today's webinar is new apps for dyslexia, dysgraphia, and other learning issues. We're really happy to have with us here today Jamie Martin. He's an assistive technology consultant and an expert. Hi, Jamie. How are you? I've heard you brought a special friend or special guest to help us to help you introduce the webinar.
Hi, Andrew. Happy summer. Yes, I did bring a special guest. So sitting next to me is my son, Duncan. And big fans of Understood might remember Duncan from the Minecraft webinar or the Minecraft blog post that I wrote about Minecraft and executive functions. So Duncan was a huge help with that. And you might also remember him from my very first video chat about a year ago when I imagined what Duncan would say if he were here to introduce me. So since he's home for summer vacation, he can actually introduce me by himself. So he's written a little bit of introduction, and go ahead, take it away, Duncan.
Hi, my name is Duncan, and I am 10. And this is my dad, Jamie, who is a lot older than 10. Jamie enjoys peanut butter, laying in the hammock that my mom and I got him, bowling, and spending time with me. Oh, I almost forgot to tell you. He's also an ATM expert who can make a lot of money in one day, but although he has to pay a lot of it back to the government. Jamie has worked out with kids who have dyslexia for a long time. However, now he works from home teaching kids what apps can help them with their dyslexia. Today, Jamie will teach about new apps for dyslexia, dysgraphia, and other learning issues, which reminds me, I also have ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. But my time for this introduction seems to be done, so here's Jamie.
Thank you, Duncan.
That was an awesome introduction, Duncan. Well done.
All right. All right, so we're ready to take it away here, Andrew?
Yeah, sure. I just want to give, for those of you watching out in our parent audience, just so you know, if you have questions during the webinar, you can type them into the chat box on the right side of your screen, and Jamie will get to them at the end of the webinar. So, Jamie, go ahead, take it away.
All right, thanks again, Andrew. Thanks for everyone else for taking a break from your summer to join us here today. It's very hot here in Connecticut, so hopefully it's a little bit cooler in your neck of the woods, wherever you're watching from. So today we're going to talk about new apps for dyslexia, dysgraphia, and other learning issues. If you haven't figured out by now, it's extremely difficult to keep track of all the new apps that come out. I have a difficult time doing it myself. So what I've done here is collect 12 new apps. Really the summer is a great time for you to experiment with some of these new apps. You play around with them, get familiar with them, let your kids try them out during the summertime so that when school starts up again, maybe they'll have a few new tools that they can use and that will help them out in school. So just to clarify, what I mean by new apps, all the apps that I'm going to talk about today were either new releases during this past school year, during 2015-2016, or they received a major update during this past school year. And I'll highlight what those major updates are for those particular apps. So again, the new apps that we're talking about were all either released or updated in a significant way during the 2015-2016 school year. So let's jump right in. And the first app we're going to talk about is called Easy Spelling Aid. And this app can help out with dyslexia, but also there's a great feature in here that can help kids with dysgraphia in terms of learning how to form different letters. And then there's even, it could be used for kids with who are English language learners. And I'll say right up front, I'm going to actually refer to ELL a few times during this presentation for a few different apps. And by no means am I an ELL expert. But these apps that I'm going to talk about in terms of language learning, English language learning, might be something for you to check out, maybe something to make your child's ELL teacher aware of, just to see if they might help out your child who is learning English as their second language. So Easy Spelling Aid is available for both iOS and Android platforms. And you can see the prices under there. And I just want to point out that these prices are current as of today, July 7th, 2016. So if you're watching this in the recording, in the archive, you might want to double check those prices again to make sure that they are the same. There are a few apps that I'm going to talk about that are on sale currently. So those you definitely want to double check if you're watching this maybe a month from now, maybe sometime in August. So Easy Spelling Aid is it's a very basic app. It does exactly what the name says. It helps you out with your spelling. So let's go to the next slide here, and then we'll figure that out. Okay, so when you first open up the app, this is what you see. It's a very easy, basic interface, and it says touch mic and talk. And what we're going to do is dictate a word or a group of words, and the app will transcribe those words so that kids can see how to spell them. So if I tap that microphone icon, this is what we'll see. It says talk, pretty basic. So since we're in the summertime and I need help spelling and writing out this sentence, here's what I'm going to say. Sandcastles are fun to build at the beach. And then when I'm done, I can just tap where it says done, and it will print it out on the screen for us. So what's really nice here is that not only will it show us how to spell those words correctly, but also how to form those letters on a lined piece of paper. So, for kids with dysgraphia who have difficulty forming those letters, they can copy it off of the screen once they see this here. You have 3 buttons there. Number 1 is a return button. That will bring us back to the main screen so that we can dictate something else. Number 2 is a speaker icon. That will read the text out loud with text-to-speech. And number 3 is the settings app there too. So if we go into the settings, we can actually change the way that the words look on the screen. So we can change the settings so that we have all capital letters. So if kids have difficulty with just the caps, they can get some help with that. We can also turn it into cursive writing so that if kids with dysgraphia have difficulty writing in cursive, they can copy down from this screen as well. A newer feature in this app, in the latest update, is also one of the dyslexia fonts. I believe this one is Open Dyslexia. So maybe this will help kids with dyslexia read that a little bit easier. Then, in terms of the ELL stuff, there's a great new translation tool in Easy Spelling Aid where if you dictate something in English, you can translate it to another language. So in this case, it will be Spanish. And once I dictate that in, it will show me both the English on the top and then the translation into Spanish. So let me test out my Spanish pronunciation here. So sandcastles are fun to build at the beach will be translated to Castillos de arena son divertidos para construir en la playa. It's been a long time since I took Spanish, so hopefully I said that all correctly. But then, in terms of the ELL kids, they can go back into the settings and do a reverse translation. So if they are learning English, they could dictate that sentence in Spanish first, and then it would translate it into English and print it out on the screen so they can see what it looks like. So I think it's something you might want to check out with your child's ELL teacher if you're in that particular situation. So Easy Spelling Aid, fantastic tool. Not only does it give you the correct spelling for words and entire phrases and sentences, but also helps kids with dysgraphia learn how to form those letters and write them out on paper. Okay, so our next app is called HangArts, and this is one of my very favorite new apps from this past school year. As you'll see, it can help out kids who have dyslexia and dysgraphia again. It is available for both Apple and Android devices. And this one I think is on sale right now only for Android devices, so keep an eye on that if you're an Android user, because that price will probably go up at some point in the near future. So Hang-R is kind of a takeoff on the traditional hangman that you and I played on paper, Andrew, when we were kids. But what I really like about this is that it's brought it into the 21st century, and it no longer uses a noose to hang the little man, which is nice. The guy is hanging off of a pole instead of a rope. So I think that's a really good change there. So when you open it up, there are 3 different things that you can do with HangArt. You can play the traditional hangman game to learn how to spell words. You can also draw pictures, which will give kids that practice of creating visual reinforcements for particular words. And then kids can use their words in their individual word packs to narrate stories. Now, I should say that this app is meant for kids to practice sight words. So the developers of this app have taken groups of sight words from the Dolch and Fry and other sight word lists and put them into categories according to grade. So when your kids first starts using this app, they can create a user profile and put in their grade level, K, 1, 2, or 3 plus. Because these are sight words, they're limited to these basic, lower level grade levels. And then they can go ahead and start playing the game. So when they're playing the Hangman game, it's very similar to the way we played it on paper. There's an alphabet down in the bottom, and you can choose words, and if it's correct, it'll put on the correct line. If it's not, then you get another little part of the little man, the hangman, hanging off of the gymnastics bar over there on the right. But how this is kind of brings us into a more technological age is that as each new line is placed on those dashes there, more of a different part of the picture shows up on the screen. So you're getting a visual clue to go along with this, plus a visual reinforcement for each word. So once Apple is spelled completely, it's going to take you to a whole other step of the Hangman game, and that's writing out the word either with your finger or with your stylus on the screen to get practice spelling that word right away with the hand motions. So I think this is a really good feature for kids with dysgraphia. And then once you're finished tracing those letters on the screen, you get that Apple picture back up again as that visual reinforcement. So I think this is a really great new form of that traditional hangman game. Another thing you can do with the app, though, is to draw your own pictures. So all of these visual reinforcements from particular word lists or word galleries, the app calls them, are put in there when you get the app and you first start it up. But then kids can change any of those pictures to their own drawings. So I think that's a great way for kids to kind of customize it, for their particular use. So the birthday cake was something else before I started, and then I opened it up in this little art palette, and I drew my own birthday cake. How does that look, Andrew?
I think that looks great. Tasty.
At one time, I was thinking about being an art major, so maybe I chose the right path. I don't know. So then the next time the child is playing Hangman and the word cake comes up, their own drawing will appear on the screen for that visual reinforcement. So I really like that part of this app. And then you can also tell stories or digital narratives. So a random group of words in that child's sight word group will show up on the screen. And then you can see under that blue arrow, there's a tiny little microphone icon. And the child can narrate part of a story having to do with that particular word. And it'll record it using that little microphone button. And then it'll put the entire story together and have a little narrative. So kids can get practice with that narrative process without having to write out all the words. And for younger kids, I think that's a really good kind of first step in that writing process. I think I need to redraw that the pick down there on the bottom left-hand corner. It's kind of I don't know, maybe it's inappropriate. I don't know.
I think
I would.
It's certainly memorable, which it probably makes it for a kid. I mean, I would think it would be very memorable. This is such an interesting app because it's got so many facets to it. It's not just that I was thinking it would just be the hangman, but there's so many pieces in here that could really be helpful for a kid, it seems like.
Yeah, really, especially those kids who have those emerging language skills in, kindergarten, first grade, second grade. I think this could be a really huge help. And then finally, for the kids with dysgraphia, you could just do some individual letter practice. So you have all the letters in the lowercase alphabet, where you can, again, trace either with your finger on the mobile device or with a stylus. And you can also change it next to that blue arrow. You can see you could check off uppercase, and it would change it to all the uppercase letters. Then when you're done tracing each letter, you'll get a visual, to reinforce that letter. It'll give you a visual that starts with that letter. So kids can kind of, pair up a letter and its sound with a visual. So that's HangArt. And I really like that app a lot. Okay, next app is called Endless Spanish. And I think this one can really help out with kids who have dyslexia and they are native English speakers and they might be learning a foreign language, like Spanish. I think it could help those kids out a lot. And there's a translation feature in here as well for those ELL kids who are going the other way from Spanish to English. But again, I'm not an ELL expert, so please check out this app with your child's teacher to see if it will be helpful. It is available for iOS and Android. Some of you may be familiar with an app called Endless Alphabet, or those numbers. This is from the same company, so the same developer has created this new one called Endless Spanish. It works very similarly to the endless apps that you are accustomed to. So when you open it up, you'll see the same monsters that you would find in the other endless apps. They just have been imported over here into Spanish. And then what you want to do when you first start using this app is go into the parental settings and choose which mode you want to use. So in terms of the audio, you can either, under arrow number 1, just use it as a Spanish immersion app, or you could choose the option above arrow number 2, which is Spanish with the English translation. And I think that's what that feature might help out those ELL kids. So when you first open the app, you're going to have a whole list of words. In this case, they're all in Spanish. We're going to choose amigo, which is the first one. And it's going to open up another screen, and you'll have all the letters from amigo kind of floating around on the screen. And then it's the child's job to touch and hold each letter and drop it into the correct place. So in this case, we want the letter G next to number 1 to be placed into the word under arrow number 2. And as the child is moving that letter around with their finger, the letter is saying its sound, kind of in a cartoony voice. So it makes it very fun to use. And then once the letter is, or once the word is completed, Endless Spanish will then give you a chance to put it into the context of an entire sentence. So here we have amigo, and we want to drop it into the place above arrow number 2 to try to complete the sentence. And then we also have un and we to also drop into that to make the complete sentence. And then finally, once the sentence is complete, the app will give a little animation to illustrate what that sentence means. This app is much more impressive when you're seeing it done live. So these kind of screenshots, I don't think it gives it enough justice. So you really have to try this out, and it's free. So you can try out a couple of words for free to see if you like it, And then there's an in-app purchase to buy words for the rest of the alphabet. So that's called Endless Spanish. Okay, the next app is also from that same company called Endless Learning Academy. At this point, it's only available for iOS devices, so it hasn't made the leap to Android yet, but it's the only one in that app family that has not, so I imagine it will at some point. This is available on a subscription basis because you'll get new lessons for your kids to work through every month. So you can download the app for free, and then you can purchase a subscription once you get it. So then once you open it up, you're going to see what they've done is kind of combine a lot of, all of the other Endless apps into one app. So let me show you really briefly, the different sections here. You see Spanish up there on the right. I'm not going to repeat that because it's exactly what I just did with the Endless Spanish app. But under that blue arrow all the way to the left, it's a little hard to see with all the colors on that screenshot. You have the kind of the phonemic awareness section of the app. So the first part of Endless Learning Academy is just a phonemic awareness kind of exercise where kids can put letters into the proper places in particular words. The next part is a reading section where kids can put words into the context. That's very similar to Endless Spanish, but in this case it's in English. So they can drag each word into the correct position in a sentence, and those words will be read out loud as they're dragging them around. There's also a spelling component to Endless Learning Academy, where kids work through a series of words and put the letters in the correct positions in the words. For kids with dyscalculia, there's a numbers section, a math section, with some basic number sense exercises where kids can work through basic number values and put them into basic equations. There will be pictures later on once this equation is completed. There'll be more animations to help them understand what these numbers mean and the concept of addition in this case. And then the one feature that Endless Learning Academy does not have that the other Endless apps, I'm sorry, the one feature that this has in addition to what those other Endless apps don't have is the Academy part. This is where you're getting your monthly lessons. So this is really going to focus in on like social skills concepts. In this case, for kids who are learning what a friend means, they can explore, the word friend, and it will take you through a series of animations to kind of illustrate, what it means to be a good friend. So in this case, the little blue monster is sharing his pizza because he's a good friend. And in this one, sometimes you make a new friend when you least expect it. So the dolphin is going to help the little blue robot back to shore. So the kids can kind of get some really kind of cool, neat little examples to help them understand those social skills concepts, and some other things too. So that's Endless Learning Academy. There's a lot to it, and that subscription rate I think is probably well worth it, and rather than just purchasing those individual Endless apps. Okay, Newsela is an app that helps kids with dyslexia. It's a free app for iOS devices only at this point. And what it will do is give a series of current events articles on a variety of different reading levels. So kids with reading comprehension difficulties can read different news articles and change the reading level based on what reading level they're at. So these are all the ones that are available. There's 5 different levels. Then once the child reads through each article, there's a reading comprehension quiz attached to each reading level that they can work through. And then this is a new addition in a recent update to Newsela. There's a writing prompt for each article. This is something that has been available for the website version of Newsela, and they just brought it into the iOS app. So kids can practice responding to each news article using the writing prompt. It's also worth noting that in terms of text-to-speech and kids with dyslexia, there's not a built-in text-to-speech component in Newsela, but it works really nicely with the built-in text-to-speech of iOS, the operating system. And in this case, I'm using iOS's Speak Screen feature to read this article out loud, and it will highlight the words as it goes along.
Hey, Jamie, can I ask you a question about the Newsela app? We've got a couple thoughts on from our audience about different levels. Some one of our parents is interested in like 5th, 6th grade. One of them's interested in sort of college level. Is this app something that could sort of work for a number of different kids going up to even high school because of those different levels?
Yes, I think so. Yeah, very much so. If you compare, the lowest reading level to the highest one, you're going to see the vocabulary is a lot different in that news article. Even the headlines are, easier to understand for the younger kids and more mature for the older kids. And all of these articles that are posted in Newsela are written by people on those 5 different levels. So you're not going to get a lot of kind of technical glitches in terms of having some kind of app, do the conversion, because it's people doing the conversion.
So this is a really good way to sort of level, to sort of pick an article that your kid could read no matter where they are and sort of their reading skill.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, that's very useful.
You mentioned that it was on iOS, and I was interested, too, because is there also a website that's associated that people could try it if they don't have?
Yeah. So if you don't have if you have an Android device, if you're not an Apple family. You can certainly go to www.newsela.com and try it out online.
Okay, great.
All right, so the next app is called Claro Scan Pen. This is another iOS-only app at this point. And this is an app that runs on OCR technology. So many of you have probably heard me talk about OCR before. OCR stands for Optical Character Recognition. And all that means is that you take a picture of text on a piece of paper, and the app will convert it to electronic text and read it out loud with text-to-speech. So I have 2 quick screenshots for this one. So this is a printed out version of The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. This is something your child might receive in an English class. So if the child receives it on a piece of paper, in order to make that accessible and use text-to-speech for it, they can take a picture with the Claro Scan Pen app using the little shutter button, just like you would use on the device's camera app. And then the app will convert it into electronic text and read it out loud to you. And all you need to do to read it out loud is use your finger to draw a box around the words you want read out loud, and the app will use text-to-speech to read those words out loud. And that's it. It's a very basic kind of point-and-shoot app, where you're taking a picture of words, converting the words, and reading them out loud with text-to-speech.
Wow.
Okay, Voice Dream Reader has been around for a few years now. I'm sure many of you have heard of it already, but Winston Chen, the developer of Voice Dream, recently released a major update to it. So I'm just going to highlight a few of the updated features. You should know that it is available for both iOS and Android devices. He raised the price for the Apple version with the new update, but it's on sale this week, back to the old price. So it's if you haven't gotten it yet for your Apple device, now is the week to get it, because he knocked $5 off, I think, until the weekend. So Voice Dream Reader, iOS and Android. The new version, which I'm going to show you on, all these screenshots are taken from the iOS device. You now have a very visual bookshelf in the new updated version. There's a pronunciation dictionary in Voice Dream Reader, and what this will do is allow the user or your kids to correct the pronunciation of the text-to-speech. So if the text-to-speech is mispronouncing a particular word, you can train the app to read it correctly out loud, which is really useful for proper nouns, names of things that text-to-speech often will get incorrect. You're also one of the visual settings in VoiceStream, which is helpful for dyslexic readers, is the ability to adjust the character spacing. So you can adjust how much space is in between each character. There have been studies that have shown that for dyslexic readers, the further apart the letters are, the easier it is to read. So you can play around with that adjustment in using VoiceStream. For kids with attention issues or ADHD, there's a screen masking feature where you can block off certain parts of the screen. So if there are too many words on the screen and it's distracting to your child with attention issues, you can turn on the screen masking feature and either show 3 lines at a time, like you see here, or you can even go down to just 1 line at a time. So that can help out kids with those learning and attention issues. And then one of the coolest features, I think, in the newest updated version is an option called finger reading, where the kids can track how the text-to-speech is read out loud with their finger. So they can keep their finger under the word they want read out loud and really adjust the pacing as they go along. Or they can just use it as a spot reader. So if they're reading and they come across one word that they don't know how to read, they can just double tap using the finger reading mode underneath that word, and it will just read that one individual word out loud. Then they can go on with their reading practice after that. So VoiceStream, tons and tons of features. And again, it's on sale for iOS devices this week, so now's a good time to try it out. Co-Writer Universal, I talked about in my last webinar on the writing process. And at that time, Co-Writer Universal was only available through schools. And I'm happy to report today that it's now available to individuals at a subscription rate of, I can't see it because there's a
$4.99
monitor blocking the screen. $4.99, thank you, per month for individual users. So families no longer have to rely on schools for a subscription to Co-Writer Universal.
That's great.
It's a great tool for kids with dyslexia and dysgraphia. It works as an individual word processor. So in this case, this is the app opened up as a word processor. And it really relies on word prediction. I think at this point, a lot of people are very familiar with word prediction. And Co-Writer is one of the best. So my first day of school was exciting. And then I want the word teacher. I can sound out what I know, and Co-Writer will give us a list of options. I can preview that center choice above the blue arrow, and we'll read it out loud. And then when I'm ready to insert it into the text, I can tap on it, and it will put it right in there. But I think what makes Co-Writer Universal such a powerful tool for iOS devices is that you can now use it as a third-party keyboard. And I've talked a lot about third-party keyboards in the past, but now you can say I have the Co-Writer keyboard open, but I'm using it with the Pages app. And I can use this keyboard with any app that I'm inputting text into, and I can get that same Co-Writer word prediction. And what makes Co-Writer such a powerful word prediction tool is a feature called topic dictionaries. So I can turn on a specific topic. In this case, we're talking about school. So that's next to arrow number 2. I can flip that switch over to on. And then when I'm writing about the topic of school, the word prediction choices are going to be much more specific to words that have to do with school. So in the second sentence, all I have to do is type in the letter S, but because I have that topic dictionary turned on, it's already predicting the word student, which is the one I want, right there in the middle of that word prediction bar. So Co-Writer Universal, fantastic tool for word prediction, for dyslexia, and again, available for individuals at this point. So check it out on their website, the Don Johnston website. You can search for Co-Writer Universal and get all the information on how to purchase a subscription there. Okay, switching gears to math. ModMath we've talked about before. Very useful for kids with math issues, so dyscalculia, but also kids with dysgraphia in the way of problem solving in that math class. So the basic version is free for iOS devices. But then if you want some advanced symbols, mathematical symbols for higher level math, you can make an in-app purchase and get those. And I'll point them out once we get into the screenshots. So this app has been out for, over a year now. But there's been a major update this past school year. They've totally redone the interface. So it's a much nicer, cleaner interface for kids. And basically, it's a virtual piece of graph paper. So kids who have difficulty writing their numerals and their math symbols on a piece of paper can use this app and the keypad, the numeric keypad, which you see on the right-hand side of the screen, to put their equations, on this virtual piece of graph paper. Makes it much easier for kids with dysgraphia to line up their equations so that they can then solve them, and they can read what they've written, and their teachers can see what they've written. In terms of kids with dyscalculia, I think it goes without saying, if they can read what they've put out on the paper, or in this case their virtual paper, they're having a much easier time solving those equations if it's legible. So these are those advanced symbols that you can get with the in-app purchase. I know a couple of those, but don't ask me what most of them mean. I'm certainly not a math expert. I know the $, and percent, and pi, infinity, and that's about it. So I don't know any of the other ones. But those of you who are math people will certainly know what those are and can probably think of great ways that your kids can be using them for their math homework. Another great new feature in ModMath is the ability to take pictures of math problems, either from a worksheet or from a math textbook, and insert them right into your virtual graph paper. Might make it a little bit easier for the kids to copy them, over into those individual squares if they have the photograph of the equation right next to it. And then one of the best new features in the updated version is the ability to share the completed homework assignment in a variety of different ways through Google Drive or Google Classroom. You can still email it to your teachers, or you can print it out. Lots of different ways to actually get the completed work to your teacher with this new update.
I just want to mention too, Jamie, that the ModMath is a nonprofit, and I've met the people who developed it. Their child has dysgraphia, so I really like this app because there's a personal story behind it. But just to add that it's a really cool that you added it.
Right. Yeah. And I love the apps that are developed by parents because that they have their hearts in the right place. And they're not looking to make a profit off of it. They're just looking to help out the kids, so you're absolutely right there. Okay, so next one is called Photomath, and this is really targeting kids who have difficulty with dyscalculia and really understanding how equations are solved and kind of figuring out the steps to how certain equations are solved. So this one is available for both iOS and Android devices, and it's free. And this has been around for a couple of years, but has undergone a major update this past school year. Basically, how it works is that it's a camera app, and you take a picture of an equation that's either on a worksheet or in your math textbook using the little viewfinder next to arrow number 1. It will convert that equation into an electronic equation, which is next to arrow number 2, and then it'll function as a calculator and give you the answer, which is next to arrow number 3. So that's all well and good in terms of being able to solve the equation. But I think what makes this valuable to kids with dyscalculia is that you can tap on that red bar, you can tap on the answer, and it will show you the steps that you would take to solve that equation. So I think this could be really useful for kids who are having a math homework assignment that is giving them difficulty. They can run a couple of their math problems through this app so they can get used to the steps that are taken to solve that kind of equation. And then they can go back and try to solve a couple on their own and then maybe use the app again, to check their answers afterwards. Certainly not meant to be an easy way out, in terms of solving math equations. More as a tool to help kids figure out the steps that are involved in solving math equations. But you don't have to use the camera. In this newest update, there's also a numeric keypad, so you can enter the equations without the camera if you want to as well. Okay, moving on to note-taking. And note-taking is particularly difficult for kids with dyslexia or executive functioning issues, where they're having difficulty figuring out main ideas and how to organize them in legible notes or notes that are easy to understand. So we're going to look at two apps, one for iOS devices and one for Android, maybe to help those kids take better notes, but more specifically, take multi-sensory notes. So if they have difficulty spelling, they don't have to write out all of their notes. They can create audio files or audio notes as part of their their note-taking collection. So Wink is a fantastic app for iOS devices. You can type text, you can draw, with your finger or a stylus, which you see on the check marks there, next to my summer reading list. You can add images, either from your camera on your device or from the photo app. And then you can also add audio files or add tags, which you see over there on the right. What I really like about this app is that anything you do is going to look great. So you don't have to be gifted in terms of graphic design, because when you pick a theme, like this text palette, it will pick out certain fonts that go well together in certain colors. So it's going to look great no matter what you do in it. Same thing with the colors. You can select a certain color palette with the colors that all go well together. When you're ready to add some of those extra features, there's like a little toolbar that pops up. So arrow number 1 is pointing to image, so you can add an image file. In this case, you see the book pictures, book covers that I added that way. You can add a text box under arrow number 2 if you want to. You can add tags to categorize certain notes under arrow number 3. And then for particularly for dyslexic kids who get tripped up with spelling and can't write out long notes because of that difficulty, they can take audio notes, which is under arrow number 4, and then they can play back those audio notes later on when they're looking at these notes. Really great app. I really like this one a lot. Squid is an option for Android users, free with some additional features with a paid subscription. But again, it's the same idea. It's a multi-sensory app where you can add type text, which you can dictate type text with both iOS and Android devices. You can draw diagrams or pictures, which you can see with my little clouds up there on the top. And then you can add images also to give you visual reinforcement. My light just blinked again. Hopefully my internet won't cut out again on us. So another way to take multi-sensory apps on an Android device. This one's called Squid. This is what the text menu looks like. Very easy, to make the text bigger or smaller with that little toolbar. You can add shapes if you want to using this app. You can also just draw, and you can change the thickness on the lines. A lot of times kids with learning and attention issues are very gifted artistically. So these two apps might be a really great way for them to take more visual notes in their classes, which might be more helpful for them. And then this is just showing you the options of where you can get the different photographs or the different images for Squid. Okay, then the last app, and then hopefully we'll have time for a couple questions at least, is called Google Keep. This is great for kids with ADHD and executive functioning issues, and it's great for them to be able to stay organized. So it's a visual organizer. Not only is it available for iOS devices and Android devices, but you can get it on the web. You can get it on a Chromebook. Just about any computing device, you can locate your Google Keep information. So I like to compare this to a kind of a virtual refrigerator door where you're sticking little notes up on your refrigerator to stay organized. So lots of different kinds of notes you can take with this. Number one is showing a to-do list where you can check them off. These are things to pack for my Maine vacation. I forgot to put in there visit Amanda Moran again. That should be on the bottom of my list, so I can check that off. Arrow, I think she's watching today, so I wanted to mention her. Arrow number 2 is pointing to today's webinar, so I don't forget to do that. And arrow number 3 is an audio file, and this is some information about my Weekend Wisdom, which is coming up on Understood in a couple of weeks. That's a little shameless plug there I added at the end. So arrow number 3 is showing you the audio option. You can create an audio reminder rather than just a text reminder. And then I also wanted to just point out that you can add a reminder. That arrow is pointing to a little finger with a string attached to it, and you can set a reminder using your Google tools so that it'll give you a little warning of when that event is coming up in order to keep your life organized and keep on track. So I kind of went fast there after the break. Hopefully we have time for some questions, Andrew.
Thanks a lot, Jamie. That was really great. And I just really want to thank our audience, too. Thanks for sticking with us. We had a few technical issues, but I hope you got a lot out of it. We're going to now take a few of the questions that have been out there and get Jamie's take on them. So the first question actually was about a specific app, VoiceStream Reader. A couple of people asked, what types of documents can VoiceStream Reader read? And specifically, is it able to access books on Kindle?
Good question. I think Kindle books, if I'm not mistaken, are in the EPUB format. So I would have to, in terms of Kindle, I would have to explore that a little more before I could give you a definitive answer. But I think what a lot of families find most useful about VoiceStream is that they can sync it up with their child's Bookshare account and download their Bookshare books directly to the VoiceStream app. Then they can use all the visual settings and the audio settings in VoiceStream to read those Bookshare books out loud. But there's also, you can read web documents in there. You can import documents from the Safari app if you're using it on an Apple device. Export just the text. So again, kids with attention issues can get rid of all that distracting material from a particular website, all the ads on the outside or different links that might be over in the margin. So they can just focus in on the text of that website. Again, if you can get an EPUB file, access that on your mobile device, you can open that in VoiceStream Reader. You can also copy and paste text. So if you need help reading a long email, you can copy the text from the email and paste it into VoiceStream. Just about any text that you would find on your mobile device, you can read in VoiceStream.
Awesome. I know that I just use the built-in iOS for the text-to-speech on Kindle. But it sounds like there's a lot of different things that VoiceStream Reader can do, and a lot of different formats it can work with.
Yes, absolutely.
We have another question about the Endless Library, or Endless, the Endless Spanish, Endless spelling. NK Shep, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, but this has a question about that app. She's worried that it might clip sounds. Have you found that's the case, or is it pretty good with pronouncing the entire word?
Well, I do have to say, and we'll be honest here, my wife is actually an Orton Gillingham expert. She's an Orton Gillingham fellow, and I've run this app by her. And some of those letter sounds are not quite accurate according to the way she would teach them to kids. So be aware of that. Some of the, and I'm thinking specifically of something like the L sound. My wife would say you would pronounce it oh, but I believe the app will say la 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 la, something like that. So that might confuse kids a little bit. So keep that in mind. You might want to run that app by your child's reading teacher, just to see what they think of it before you have your kids use it. But in terms of basic phonemic awareness, I think it does a good job in kind of helping kids get that sound-symbol relationship between looking at a letter on the screen and associating a particular sound to it. But there might be some inconsistencies there in terms of how particular letters are pronounced. So yes, be aware of that.
Okay. One of our parents has asked, how you mentioned that, and this is a clarifying point. You said that these apps are available for iOS. Does that mean they're available for iPad? She's just trying to figure that out.
Right. Yeah. So when I kind of use it interchangeably. I'm sorry if I confused anyone. iOS is the operating system for all Apple devices. So iPhone, iPad. I believe they're still making the iPod Touch. So yes, absolutely.
Awesome. And then another parent, CME, is asking about Wink. And, CME says that she's dyslexic and she's actually never been able to take notes. She's looking to help her son going into 6th grade and just kind of, with taking notes. She's a little bit of a loss to help him. Could you tell her a little bit more about Wink and some of these other options for note-taking?
Sure. So I really like the multi-sensory note-taking options like you would find in Wink because they don't require the note-taker, it could be an adult or it could be a student, to take all of their notes as written text or typed text. So particularly for people with dyslexia who may not be able to get all of their notes that they would like, either down on paper or typed out onto a screen, because they have difficulty with spelling and they get slowed down, they can make an audio note, which is much quicker. They can draw diagrams. They can, something like this. I think we can see this on the screen now. I was rating, putting a little rating system on my summer reading books, A+, A, and B, how I liked it. I can do that really quickly with my finger or with the stylus so that I don't have to write out all of that, in words or type it on using the keyboard. I referred to, kids with dyslexia and other learning issues many times being, talented visually. This kind of multi-sensory note-taking really kind of plays into that strength. So that this kind of note-taking can, I think might be better suited, for kids with those kinds of LDs, because it's a lot more visual and because it's that multi-sensory platform.
That's a great answer. I hope that helps you sort of find your way through some of the ways to help your son. We have time for one last question. This is from another of our parents, a little bit more involved, but I just want to see what your take is. This is she's a 7th grader with dyslexia and dysgraphia, not really getting any AT from her school system. And she's looking for sort of where does she start? Does she start with sort of these, the iOS, maybe an individual app, or do you suggest that she starts with sort of a desktop, laptop situation, and maybe tries some of the software there? Where do you suggest she would begin? I know you wrote a blog on this, but if you had, for her particular situation, 7th grader, what would you suggest?
Okay, so 7th graders, middle school, so it's kind of in that in-between age. I think, if you have a mobile device at home, like the iPad, or if your child has a phone at this point in 7th grade, you might want to explore that Voice Dream app, towards the beginning of your AT journey. I really like to recommend some kind of text-to-speech tool as a way to kind of get your feet wet, because suddenly we have so much text in our world that text-to-speech kind of like opens up a whole new realm for our LD kids. Suddenly information that was inaccessible to them, they can just dive right in and listen to it and become part of the conversation there. But there's in terms of if you have an iOS device, there's really great built-in text-to-speech. I did a webinar on that topic last summer. This time you can go back and check that out in the archive. how to use the built-in accessibility or the built-in text-to-speech of the Apple devices. I would really start with kind of that text-to-speech first. Then you might want to think about some spelling aids in terms of your child getting help with spelling. Word prediction is fantastic. That Co-Writer Universal app that I mentioned earlier is a great way for kids to get word prediction help when they're spelling. iOS devices and Android devices both have built-in dictation. So usually by 7th grade, kids can use dictation fairly successfully, so they can dictate their writing and get help with spelling that way. And those are really kind of the two basic places to start. Text-to-speech, where you can have words read out loud to you, and either dictation or word prediction, where you can say the words or the sentences you want, and you get help with the spelling through that assistive technology. After that, I'm not going to say any more because I don't want to overwhelm you.
I think that's really a helpful place to start, and I hope if you asked that question, I hope that was useful for you. I also want to just mention, for those of you out there, you have these more involved questions. We do have a Week in Wisdom coming up called Apps for Back to School. That's on the 22nd of July, and if you really have like a lot of really in-depth questions you want for Jamie, that's a really place to ask them and get like more help, more of his expert insight on this stuff. So that's about all the time we have for today. I just want to thank Jamie. This has been a great webinar. I learned a lot about some really cool apps. So thank you.
My pleasure.
And I just want to mention for everyone else out there, if you want to see the recorded version of this webinar, it's going to be available at u.org/calendar. You can also look for upcoming events as well.
And if you watch that recorded version, you won't have that large gap in the middle that we had here today.
Yes, that's definitely true. So thanks again, Jamie, and really appreciate you coming on and sharing your insights with us.
All right, thank you.
Take care, everyone.